Hiya, thank you for turning on the DVD, and thank you for being part of a small group where you can encourage each other and pray for one another and fellowship together in the good times and in the difficult times. We've been thinking about the big wait and what we do while we're waiting for the breakthrough. And the next couple of weeks we'll be talking a bit more about the breakthrough and what that looks like and what that feels like and what God does in order to get us to that point. But today I'm just asking, what do we need to do while we're waiting in the wilderness? And there's three things effectively from the early chapters of their time in the wilderness in the book of Exodus that the people of Israel do to help them survive, and I think they're incredibly practical and helpful for us now. And the first one is simply they collected the manna every day. And I guess that made them thankful. I guess that it brought them together. I guess that it helped them to concentrate on God and be just in the moment while they're living, waiting for the promised land. And sometimes we are so focused on what God is going to do, what we're trusting God for, what we're praying for. We're so focused on the future that we forget to be thankful for the things that we have now. And that manna collection, I think, just helps us to recognise that God is working now. The miracles are happening now. God is providing for us now. And we need to be thankful for that. And then, of course, we can spiritualise it, just as Jesus seemed to do when he said, "Give us this day our daily bread," and then talks about bread in spiritual terms later in the chapter in Matthew 5. And the collecting the manna daily, I think, is just so important for us, isn't it? To carve out time in our normal day with Jesus, to feast on him, to connect with someone else, to for heart-to-heart fellowship, to know that God is with us and providing for us daily bread. And collecting manna daily, vital for us to do that. Work out how you can do it and encourage each other with ways that you do that.
I think trust is fundamental. The relationship is everything, isn't it? And sometimes we can have a perspective that God has somehow changed, that somehow doesn't approve of us because we're in a difficult place. But it's relentless trust, and I think that relentless trust goes both ways. I think when God's engaged with us in relationship, I think he has a relentless trust with us as well. Because he has faith in us, and I forget that sometimes, that he trusts us to go through those difficult times, and he promises never to leave us and never to forsake us, even though we feel left and we feel forsaken.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think the commitment to do something every day to engage with God is easier said than done when you're going through a tough time, but so important, because if you're ever going to come out of a dry place with God, then that's probably only going to come out of a place of seeking him. Yeah,
absolutely. I think one of the things, I've had a couple of really dry times in my life, and one of them was I got through it simply by committing to do the right thing. And that involved, reading the scriptures each day, praying each day, even though it didn't feel like it was working, and yet knowing that even though I feel God isn't around, actually the truth is he is. I guess sometimes the picking up the manna was a very automatic thing, and yet with the right heart it can lead to thankfulness and, as you say, trust in the relationship. Yeah. Second thing they did was obeyed the commandments, and I do find it interesting that it's while they were in the wilderness that God gives them the covenant that is the basis for on which the basis of the covenant is the Ten Commandments. He gives them the covenant, and the basis of the covenant is the Ten Commandments. And these rules are not about legalistically following a taskmaster. They're an invitation to relationship. I'm the God who rescued you. If you want to follow me, if you want to be with me, if you want to show that you love me, this is how you live. And again, in the hard times, it's important for us to do that, because it's important for us to keep our integrity, to keep our righteousness, to keep our just holiness before the Lord. because it's that doing the thing that Jesus commanded is the thing that allows our house to stand in the storms. It's the righteousness that we hold that is obviously a righteousness from Christ, but also it's the righteous things we do that are a breastplate to us and stop us succumbing to the attacks of the devil. So both the world and the devil, when they get to us, the storms that Jesus talked about, the spiritual battle that Paul talks about, when we are defended by our obedience, by our righteousness. And that is such an important thing when we don't feel that God is around us in such a strong way. And in the wilderness times, we just need to encourage each other to do the right thing, make the good choice, obey, because it's the way forward. And God makes such a big thing of it for the Israelites in the wilderness.
I heard a good quote. It was something along the lines of authentic spirituality is only found absent from a fear of punishment or a hope of reward. And I think that's what I'm trying to foster in my life. How do I act when I'm not scared I'm going to be caught, or when I'm just hoping to be rewarded with something? How do I act when no one's watching? And that, if I can master that, then that's an authentic spirituality.
Yeah, and a godly lifestyle.
And I find it easy, in terms of my attitude, I'm probably more prone to be whingy and slightly rebellious. And it's about giving that to him, because he knows all things. He's big enough to deal with that. And sometimes I think we have to let go of why. Why, when Jesus died on the cross, his last question was, "Why, Father? Why have you forsaken me?" And it was trust that carried him through to the answer, which was a continuation of the relationship with his Father.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think releasing why and just facing up every day, living day by day in those difficult times.
Excellent. The third thing is a bit of a surprise, because it was in the wilderness that the people of Israel had the most amazing encounters with God. So Moses' face shone when he visited the Lord in the tent, and then they built a tabernacle so that God could dwell with them, and there was the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud around them to lead them through the wilderness. And then there's a lovely verse that's one of my favourite encounters with God, where it just says that the elders went up the mountain with Moses, and there they ate and drank when they met with God. And it's just this intimacy of fellowship and relationship, and the need in the desert to pursue the presence of God, because he is found in the desert. And we can get to a place where we think that God is so far distant, so far away, and yet the reality is that God is walking with us, that he is leading and guiding us, that he is available for encounter, that he wants to eat and drink with us, that we can create a space like they created the tabernacle in order for us to find the presence of God. And that was such a strong thing for them in that time. And I would just encourage you to pursue the presence of God, whether it's whether you feel you're in the long wait or not, just to pursue the presence of God, because it's that encounter with God that sustains us.
And don't separate from each other, because that fellowship is so important, and yet it's so easy to take ourselves away and take ourselves off, or become blaming and condemning of people around us. But press into fellowship with each other as well, and look to each other to be part of the solution. Just beautiful.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think Charity said in the evening something along the lines of the Spirit kind of drew them into the wilderness. And I think that's because there's stuff God can teach you in the wilderness or dry place or whatever you want to call it that he can't teach you elsewhere. And so if that is you, that you find yourself there, a good question to be asking is, I might be here, but what is it that God can teach me here that he can't teach me anywhere else? Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, that Satan was defeated by Jesus in the wilderness. That it's in the wilderness that we get our biggest victories. And that's, Bless you. Have a good time as you talk about this stuff. And as you wait for the promised land, as you're looking for the breakthrough, press in to some of these things and encourage one another to pursue the presence of God, to keep the righteousness that comes by faith in Christ, and just to eat daily of the manna that God provides with thankfulness. Bless you. See you in a bit. Bye-bye.